Welcome to Business Elevated, a podcast from the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, where we explore the stories and strategies behind Utah's thriving economy. I'm Pete Codella. Since its 2018 inception, the Utah Inland Port Authority has been a critical player in building economic growth and enhancing connections across Utah. By optimizing economic project areas, driving efficiency, championing sustainable progress, and focusing on long-term growth through logistics-based solutions, Utah Inland Port Authority is creating a brighter future for Utah residents. Today, we're honored to speak with Ben Hart, Executive Director of the Utah Inland Port Authority. Together, we'll discuss the authority's role in Utah's economy, the critical projects it's working on, and the future it envisions for our great state. Ben Hart, welcome to the podcast.
It is great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Tell our listeners what your connection is to the state of Utah, how long you've been here.
Well, I've been here for most of my life, including all of my professional career, and I love the state of Utah. It's been where we've chosen to raise our family, where we started our family, and my parents before us. And so I don't know if we're fifth or sixth or seventh. We've been seventh generation Utahns, but we've been here for a really long time in one form or capacity. And so we're not going anywhere. We absolutely want to do everything we can to make this place and this state a better state. And I think that's hopefully what I've been involved with throughout my career.
Any favorite places in Utah or favorite things to do?
Oh my goodness. We love Bear Lake up in the northern part of the state. We love St. George, in the winter months when it's a little bit cold in the northern part of the state. We love every place in between, but there's, living up in Layton, there's a lot of great hikes around our house. Adams Canyon is a beautiful hike. And I would say some of the Davis County hikes may not be as well known as some of the other more glorious talked about statewide hikes, but there really are some great scenic hikes up in northern Utah.
Well, Ben, you and I first met back in the summer of 2018 when I interviewed for a job at GoEd at the time, and here I still am.
Doing great things. I love my time working for Governor Herbert and then Governor Cox for a couple of years, and Utah has afforded me tremendous professional opportunities. When you get to represent the state all over the world and you get to hear what people say and think about, our state, it really is a once in a career kind of opportunity, and Utah's doing amazing things. We're known for all the right reasons, and I think our best days are still to come.
Any other background that you want to highlight from places you've been or worked, or maybe tell us why you're in public service?
Well, I actually took a detour. I started my career working for the state of Utah. It was actually the Utah Housing Corporation. And I took a detour and went and worked for Zions Bank for about a year. And it was a great learning experience, but I really needed to give back to my communities and the places that I live. And I felt like government service was the best place to do that. And so banking probably had a much more lucrative future, but it just wasn't rewarding. I needed something that I could tangibly see and know that I was making a difference. And I'll tell you, every time I talk with a Utahn who says I work at wherever ABCD, but it's one of the companies that we help to bring to the state of Utah. There's certainly a lot of variables that bring companies to the state, but it's when it's one of the companies that I've worked on. It's so rewarding. I've been doing this long enough now that there's a lot of those businesses. And so several of my neighbors, a lot of friends, family members are employed with companies that, we help bring to the state of Utah and help create jobs with. And so, to me, that's where I derive satisfaction. That's why I've loved government service.
Well, tell our listeners about the Utah Inland Port Authority, maybe what your mission is, what you're doing in the state, how long it's been around, those things.
Yeah, well, the Utah Inland Port Authority was created in 2018. And really the whole idea behind the port was how do we bring better rail service into the Salt Lake market, but to the Utah market as a whole. Since its inception, 7 years ago now, it's evolved significantly. And particularly over the last 3 years or so, we've seen some pretty significant pivots for the port. But the idea now isn't so much different from the Port of Long Beach or Port of LA. They have a very narrow geographic area that they get served. It's right on the port, right on the coast in California. And we get to work throughout the entire state of Utah. And so we get to say, okay, how do we level up the entire state transportation network? Not only through one transportation facility, but through multiple and a network, and to look at multimodal opportunities, not just in rail, but also in air and truck as well. And so I think we talk a lot about the good things that are happening across the state. The unfortunate reality is transportation-wise, there there are definitely some areas we can make some improvement. The other side of the house is really how do we make sure that economically we're empowering regions as well. So that's a big part of what the inland port does also. And then in addition to that, we're very involved in sustainability initiatives as well, and working to help protect the Great Salt Lake wherever we can. And so across the board, it's a very significant organization that's having a transformational impact on the state.
Ben, talk about the concept of an inland port. Like, are we talking about goods that are being brought to the United States and don't go to a coastline and come right into Utah and then are distributed from here?
That was the concept, was we were going to have a port facility, and that's where we were going to bring goods from international locations and, quite frankly, even domestic locations. But that concept has definitely evolved, and we've realized that, one, we have a lot of trucks coming into the northwest quadrant of Salt Lake City, which is kind of where the original port concept was meant to be. And two, we have underserved communities all across the state of Utah. So it's really evolved from just this idea of one inland port facility now to 14 different project areas across the state of Utah in, I think, 16 or 17 different counties. And so, it's definitely evolved. But Pete, you're right. The concept is the same. How do we get goods into our state in a more effective way and into specific facilities? And how do we get our goods out of the state in a more effective way as well?
Yeah, so I think our listeners can put together the pieces that Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity and Utah Inland Port Authority were focused on innovation, economic growth. How do we bring economic development to local communities? Are there specific industries that you're looking at?
Yeah, for us, we want to bring in high-wage jobs. We want to bring in projects that bring a lot of capital expenditure, but we also want to target future-facing formidable industries, those industries that really are going to support the state's economic growth for the next generation and even beyond that. We want to make sure that our kids have good employment opportunities, and I think the efforts we made 20 years ago and 10 years ago in the realm of economic development and economic growth have paid off. I think, we're keeping more of our kids here. There's more economic opportunity here, and we stack on and layer and work directly with the governor's office. We do hear every once in a while, are you guys redundant? And the answer is absolutely not. We don't get into statewide recruitment. We don't get into statewide incentives. We handle representation of local economic development projects, and that really allows us to work with the governor's office in a way that is probably more potent economically than anywhere else in the country. When we're able to combine what we bring as the port with what GOEO brings to the table with incentives, it creates a very powerful economic development tool.
Yeah, so a stackable corporate recruitment tool and incentive.
Yes.
Do you want to give some examples of how that's functioned in some communities?
Yeah, let me give you a very tangible example. So I think there's been a lot of efforts trying to create jobs in rural parts of the state. And so we went to work with the governor's office on a project up in northern Utah, Lakeshore Learning. And Little Garland, Utah was in competition against the Phoenix metro area and a few other places. And I don't think anyone expected Garland to be able to win. With the capabilities the port brought, we created a project area, which is, again, part of that stackable tax increment financing from the property tax side. We created that designation. We helped submit a good offer in partnership with the governor's office and Garland, and ultimately we won. And I think we shocked the people in Arizona. I think they fully expected to win that project. But again, it was that coordination. It was working together. And I think all of us being able to use the tools we had, and we were able to win a great project. And for those who have not seen the building up there, but it's nearing completion now, or is completed, it's I think the largest distribution center in the state of Utah, created 500 jobs for the local community. It's a great project. It shows when we're all working together, we can create great opportunities across the state.
Ben, just thinking back to transportation, how much of your kind of looking at infrastructure dovetails into what Department of Transportation does?
Well, they're very closely aligned, and UDOT, our Utah Department of Transportation, their role really is building new transportation roadways, and they do a phenomenal job with that. In fact, I think they do better than any Department of Transportation across the country. But we're talking most specifically about the movement of freight and the movement of goods. When we consider the Utah scenario, UDOT has done so well that our roads have a higher percentage of trucks on them than any other state in the country. Particularly post-World War II, we became a road-centric, road-dependent independent transportation state. We all get in our cars. We don't think about it. We drive wherever we need to. That's a great thing because we've always got new roads. We've got the best Department of Transportation in the country. But the reality too is there's some negatives that come from being so dependent on cars as well. We've got, pollution. We have an airshed that's very sensitive. We also have a lake that's very sensitive, but it also disadvantages those communities that are not on major roadway networks. And so when we talk about how do we create better balance, the movement of freight into the state can be accomplished significantly through rail and through air. We're very much underutilized when it comes to our rail networks here in the state of Utah and our air, quite frankly, as well. 92% of our air cargo leaves the state of Utah on a truck to go to LAX or to San Francisco or to Chicago or wherever to just get on a plane. We can do that if we create the right infrastructure here in the state of Utah. And so we have to work hand in glove with the Department of Transportation. We want to work hand in glove with the trucking industry, the air cargo industry, the rail industry. And we find that when there's an office that brings all of these different partners together to the table and has some funding to help create some infrastructure, we can get amazing things done.
I don't know how often you drive from Washington County, southern part of Utah, up to this, Wasatch Front area. My folks live down in New Harmony. It'd sure be awesome if I-15 was 3 lanes each way through the whole state instead of those few areas where it's just 2 lanes, especially considering all the semi-trucks we have. And with our growth, we'll probably get there before too long.
Well, it's interesting because I think we think about that and we think 3 lanes would be great. If we had a high-speed rail from here to St. George, that would be awesome as well. A lot of those, when you make that drive, you see how many trucks are on the road and you can see aggressive truck drivers, etc. If you took all those trucks off the road, you wouldn't need 3 lanes. When we're talking about rail, it's kind of public transportation or high speed, but instead of for passengers, it's for cargo. It's the same conversation. How do we take our vehicles off the road? And our rail in the state of Utah is so underutilized. It's a great way to be able to create capacity for our roadways.
Well, I know you've got a strategic business plan and it talks about, rail systems and elevating transportation efficiency. Do you want to talk about some projects that you're looking at coming up the next few years?
Oh, we've got some great projects that the Port is working on that we're really excited about. A lot of them are all over the state of Utah as well. Let me give a couple examples of things that we've worked on in different parts of the state. So our office, we were capitalized from the legislature with an infrastructure bank whereby we can actually provide loans out to either local communities or local businesses to help create these logistics and transportation facilities. So as an example of one, we did a loan to BZI in Iron County. BZI previously was bringing all of their steel to their front porch from facilities either in the northwest quadrant of Salt Lake City or the Phoenix area. They would get by rail into those facilities, and then they would have to truck it into Cedar City, which is hugely inefficient. And so if you think about this, it's kind of odd to think about this, but there were really no rail loading facilities in all southwestern Utah. So we provided a loan. BZI built a new facility, and now instead of having to truck that steel in, they get that steel delivered to their front porch whenever they need it. And so they estimate right now that it's been 1,500 trucks that they've taken off the road by being able to get those deliveries into their front yard in Cedar City. Last week, we helped and facilitated a deal that brought secondary intermodal access to the Wasatch Front. So BNSF will be partnering with Patriot Rail to bring secondary intermodal access into the Salt Lake City area. We haven't had secondary intermodal access for a really long time, and this is something that is desperately needed for the state. We're getting big enough that we need to have this secondary intermodal access. So now we've got a little bit more competition. We hope that drives down rates and ultimately provides a better shipping environment for manufacturers and others, agricultural producers, whatever it is, mining, to use those facilities. We also did another project with Savage in Tooele County. We're getting ready to celebrate their grand opening in September, but the estimates, they had to get some federal approvals, and as part of their data, they determined they were going to take about 4,000 to 5,000 trucks off of I-80 and I-15 every year through having this new facility out in the Tooele area. So those are the kind of projects that we're driving. We've got to be smarter about our logistics and transportation and ultimately how we're growing. But we feel like when we do that, there's this intended benefit that we're going to help shippers, manufacturers, and others in the area have better access to transportation networks as well.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking for the best place to grow your business? Welcome to Utah, ranked the #1 state for economic outlook 18 years running. Make the move to join global leaders in advanced manufacturing, aerospace and defense, life sciences and healthcare, software and IT, and financial services. With a young, educated workforce, smart tax incentives, and an unmatched quality of life, Utah is where innovation meets opportunity. Learn more at business.utah.gov.
And how much of this growth, how many of these changes are the result of kind of natural population growth versus the location of Utah, which seems to be a really nice geographic connecting point between West Coast and east of here?
Well, it is. And Pete, you're exactly right. I mean, a lot of the growth that we're experiencing and even our transportation flow has been because we're right on that boundary between I-15 and I-80. It's a great way if you're coming from the East Coast to get up to Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, or down to LA and San Diego. And so we were going to see all of that happen on a truck just because that was the road network. But we're also a good rail network at a good rail crossroads as well. So yeah, a lot of it is growth. And so we just want to be able to capture more of that on rail. So to your point, we don't have to build a third lane down to St. George. I made the drive from Cedar to St. George last week. I think they are adding that third lane, on that route. Those are expensive roadway improvements. So if we can capture more of our cargo to rail, that's a great opportunity for the state.
Yeah, just in Washington County alone, I think I've seen 3 I-15 interchanges go in the last handful of years. The growth down there is amazing. How many state employees work in the Port Authority?
0. So we are actually not a state organization. We are an independent corporation. And so we are governed by a 5-member board. Within the inland port right now, I think we've got about 22 or 23 employees. We exist and are primarily funded. We have a state appropriation, but we're primarily funded through this network of project areas. And our largest project area is the one in Salt Lake. It generates, I think it generated about $35 million in tax increment this year. And so we're able to then reinvest that into the Salt Lake community. But we're about 22, 23 employees.
Ben, talk about some of your sustainability efforts, preserving environmentally sensitive areas. You've mentioned it, but it is important in Utah. People talk about limited water, air quality, limited land. What's your team doing in that regard?
Well, this is a really important area for us. Our sustainability initiatives have been front and center, and it creates balance with what we're doing economically and on the logistics side. So we have several efforts that we're involved with, most particularly in areas where we're around the Great Salt Lake and in sensitive airsheds as well. And so over the past 3 years, we've built out a robust framework within our policy and project area plan and budgets to actually funnel money back to conservation, restoration projects. And so in Weber County, where we're very close to sensitive land areas and wetland areas, we have the most robust amount of money coming back to those specific type projects. An example of what we've been able to do with that money. So we did a $2.5 million grant to the Department of Natural Resources last year for conservation. And so we also have we've added certain regulatory frameworks for our project area plans. Again, where we have areas like Weber County where it's very sensitive lands, it says specifically we will not destroy wetlands. And so we've been working together with local landowners to ensure that they're preserving wetlands wherever they can. And for us, that's been a very good feature. We also were partners with the Department of Air Quality last year on the largest environmental grant in the state's history, $112 million. It'll go to help mitigate and purchase new equipment for specific rail facilities in the Northwest Quadrant. We take our role around sustainability very, very seriously, and we've made a lot of efforts and pivots to make sure that we're doing everything we can. Behind the scenes, we're always encouraging our rail partners to bring in as clean rail equipment as we can, and that's led to some really good outcomes. We really appreciate our partners at Union Pacific and other places for always ensuring that, we've got good as clean running equipment as is possible.
Hey, we've talked about economic development and the industries of the future. I want to ask you an artificial intelligence question. Are you seeing demand for infrastructure or space that can be used for AI farms?
Yeah, I mean, this is the hot topic right now. And I think, I was just having a conversation with another professional in this field earlier today. They're working on one of the specific data center farms in the state of Utah, potential data center farms. This is a really hot topic. I think power is one of our key critical issues right now. But yeah, when it comes to this race, and I think there's a lot of concern about, other countries that may not have our best interest at heart, about making sure that we stay on the cutting edge of AI and always developing out solutions around AI for all of the infrastructure necessary to support the entire industry. Right now, we're seeing that primarily in two areas, data centers and power availability. And so, yes, the port is involved in several areas across the state where we really like to see more data centers. Honestly, probably every one of our project areas would love to have a few data centers in it because of significant capital expenditure. But power is just an issue. And so, we're seeing more and more. We see Fervo in Beaver County. They've done some really cool things around geothermal solutions. For power, we see several potential microgrids coming online. We see, obviously, nuclear is a big topic, but it seems like that's a few years out. But it seems like there are definite solutions that people are bringing to the table today that are going to allow us to move forward in the near future, hopefully with large-scale data center projects here in the state of Utah. I think we want to be on the front of the solution and the AI revolution that's happening, but I think we want to do it in a responsible way as well. We realize in some cases and platforms there's heavy water usage. That's probably not a great thing for the state of Utah, but there are places where I think we can make it fit. So we want to do so responsibly, but we hope that we're on the cutting edge of helping to develop some really cool data center projects across the state.
Ben, I think you're the second executive director of the Utah Inland Port Authority, and maybe looking forward a half dozen years or more, what do you hope you can accomplish as you're leading the organization? Maybe between now and when the Winter Olympics are here in 34, like what do you hope you can do?
That's a great question. I think for me, there's a few set of priorities that are just absolutely critical. Front and center, we really want to support Salt Lake City International Airport in their efforts to become an air cargo gateway. I think that's absolutely critical. That leads to lower costs. That leads to better air quality. That leads to better economic performance overall. So if we can help to create a better air cargo gateway, the consumers benefit from better opportunities, cheaper shipping costs, etc. I think in places where we've seen true air cargo gateways, there's a real economic impact. So that means we get multiple economic players. We've announced and talked about a potential project that we're working on with Delta Airlines. We would like to see several others come to the table and see if we can create a few other air cargo facilities at Salt Lake City International. I think when we get into the Olympic conversation, those are things that are really going to help. We have a really unique opportunity with Rio Tinto, Precious Metals, even the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here locally. They do a lot of shipping as well. And so we have some very unique cargo opportunities. I think that would be awesome. I think we want to see a continued better balance between truck and rail. If we get that down to 50-50, I think you're going to see a huge difference on Utah roadways. I don't know if we can get quite to that balance.
What's the mix right now?
Oh, I think we're 80-20, maybe even a little bit worse than that some days, mostly trucks. So we'd like to see more coming in on rail. That means less pollution in the air. That means better opportunities for rural parts of the state as well. So I think we want to see better balance on our roadways with cargo. Economically, I think we want to see, kind of a world-renowned manufacturing campus on the west side of Salt Lake City in the Northwest Quadrant that's seen as a global example of future automation and manufacturing and bringing a lot of, big companies here to the state of Utah. I think that's absolutely part of our goal. So I would hope by the Olympics, we've got 4 or 5 different major corporations, large-scale manufacturing opportunities in the Northwest Quadrant of Salt Lake City. And I absolutely believe we can get there. And I think we want to see better economic growth throughout the state of Utah as well. I think we want to see good companies in every corner of the state. And then on top of that, I think we want to see a thriving Great Salt Lake. I think everyone wants to see that. So how do we get more water back to the lake? How do we preserve the wetlands around the Great Salt Lake? I think all of those mixed in, that's the transformational impact the port wants to have across the state.
So final question, what do you find most rewarding or inspiring about being a part of Utah's business community?
I love Utah's business community. I've been a part of economic development for almost 20 years now here in the state of Utah. And I've always been on that line between government and the private sector. We have something really unique here in the state of Utah when it comes to our business community. And that is that we really do all like each other. I joke a lot that we're small enough that, we still can get some pretty significant things done, but we're not big enough where none of us hate each other and don't want to work together, which quite frankly, we see in a lot of larger markets. People just don't want to work together. We're still at the size where I think we want to work together naturally and we want to make some pretty cool things happen. And so we do have something very unique here in the state of Utah. My hope is that we don't lose that. I think when we stop wanting to work together, whether it's as governmental partners or private sector partners, when we start to see more dividing lines pop up, that's when we don't see the level of collaboration, we lose our secret sauce, and ultimately we're not going to be nearly as successful as we could otherwise. And so I think the private sector in Utah is always going to be dynamic. It's always going to be forward thinking. I think our government sector has to be the same. We have to be willing to work together to make sure that we're accomplishing everything we can for our citizenry. And if we ever lose that focus of what can we do to help and how do we work together, then ultimately we're not going to be nearly as successful as we could be otherwise. So 10, 20, 30 years from now, I hope people are still working together, finding solutions, and ultimately coming together to make the state a better place.
Ben Hart, Executive Director of Utah Inland Port Authority, thanks for spending some time with us on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Here is a quick update from the Economic Opportunity Office for the week of August 17th, 2025. The Economic Assistance Grant application window is open September 1st through the 15th. This grant assists Utah businesses in promoting and supporting economic opportunities in the state and provides services related to industry, education, community development, or infrastructure. Learn how to qualify and apply for this grant at business.utah.gov.
Thanks to our office marketing communications team for their work on this episode. You can find and follow us on social media at Business Utah. Please feel free to email us with feedback or episode suggestions at business@utah.gov. The Business Elevated podcast is published by the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. I'm your host, Pete Codella. Thanks for listening.
The views and opinions of podcast guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity or the state of Utah.